Although a fairly new innovation, the electronic cigarette, also known as e-cigarette, has been marketed as an alternative to conventional cigarette smoking. An article by Reuters reports that 10.8 million people are using e-cigarettes and more than half of this population are under the age of 35. Considering conventional cigarettes produce tar, ash, and carbon monoxide, the electronic cigarette is marketed as a healthier substitute as it does not produce these chemicals and has less nicotine if at all. The key difference between conventional and electronic ones is that e-cigarettes do not contain tobacco and produce an aerosol with fewer chemical components than conventional ones. The liquid in the cartridge is propylene glycol, glycerine, and may or may not contain nicotine or flavorings. The inhalation activates the heating of the liquid, which gets converted into the vapor that we see upon exhalation.
Although it has been marketed as a healthier alternative to traditional smoking, one of the key issues that results from this new device is the unfortunate environmental pollution. Whether or not e-cigarettes result in health consequences down the line, it has been shown to impact those in the nearby environment through secondhand smoke and pollution. The e-cigarette, when used, emits a water-based vapor containing aerosols into the air. This emission results in the release of oxidants, reactive oxygen species, copper, and nanoparticles into the atmosphere. Additionally, the oxidants from e-cigarettes draw further attention to the environmental pollution that results.
This aerosol exposure has been associated with respiratory function impairment and reduced the air quality. In a 2014 article by Escobar et al., it was found that this reduced indoor air quality can lead to lung cancer and cardiovascular disease even for non-smokers as a result of environmental exposure. Specifically, particles formed from 1,2-propanediol vapor can be deposited in the lung. Another key issue is the high prevalence of use among the youth. A 2015 article found that the majority of usage was within 15 to 24 age group, potentially due to the marketing strategy and the use of flavoring in the e-cigarettes.
Although the pollutants released from electronic cigarettes are less than conventional ones, based on a 2015 article, the particles within the e-cigarette aerosol range from 0.45 to 2.02 micrometers, and copper was 6.1 times higher per puff than conventional cigarettes. Emissions of acetone, 2-butanone, and propione aldehyde were detected in only one puff of e-cigarette, and a 2016 study by Margam et al. Also found formaldehyde, acetaldehyde, and acrolein in emissions.
On May 23, 2018, the federal government of Canada passed the Bill S5 under the Tobacco and Vaping Products Act, which serves to regulate the manufacture, sale, labeling, and promotion of e-cigarettes and vaping products.
As a result, vaping products that contain nicotine can now be legally sold according to provincial or territorial legislation. It's important to note that the legislation still bans the sale of non-prescription vaping products to anyone under 18. On a global scale, the UK is the only jurisdiction that has classified e-cigarettes as a medicine. Meanwhile, Britain has declared its backing of e-cigarettes as a public health benefit. Professor Jay Britton of the Royal College of Physicians stated, "If all the smokers in Britain stopped smoking cigarettes and started using e-cigarettes, we would save 5 million deaths in people who are alive today. It's a massive potential public health prize." In the US in 2014, no electronic cigarettes had been approved by the FDA. However, as of August 2016, the FDA regulated all tobacco products, meaning that they must follow certain guidelines. Clearly, there is no consensus on the topic of e-cigarettes given its new emergence and lack of strong long-term evidence. As a result, many of the countries in the world have opposing official stances, further emphasizing its controversy. As of 2017, more than 2 million middle and high school US students currently use e-cigarettes, with 81% citing the availability of appealing flavors as the main reason for use. The question that might arise is, why are teenagers more likely to want to use e-cigarettes than adults? According to the Journal of Medicine, many teenagers have begun using e-cigarettes as they portray it to be trendy and cool. Health Canada released a statement in 2018 indicating that vaping is less harmful than smoking. Completely replacing cigarette smoking with a vaping product will reduce your exposure to harmful chemicals. Although the statement does indicate support for its use, it is important to emphasize that it is not completely risk-free, as some exposure will still result. Based on the research, the evidence suggests that e-cigarettes are a healthier substitute compared to conventional smoking. However, scientific literature on the environmental impacts of e-cigarette manufacturing, use, and disposal is very limited. Not many studies formally evaluated the environmental impacts of the manufacturing process or disposal of components, including batteries. For instance, without proper recycling of nicotine-containing e-cigarette batteries, nicotine residue may enter the environment, which might have a negative effect. Based on the current literature, no long-term studies have been able to prove a correlation between electronic cigarettes and cancer. However, this is mainly due to the fact that the entire concept of e-cigarettes is fairly new, and they have not existed long enough for a long-term study to be executed. Similarly, the dose of chemicals and oxidants varies based on the amount of processing length of smoking. As a result, evidence is lacking on the dosage that will result in certain health consequences for both the user and secondhand smoker. In terms of recommendations, firstly, given the release of various chemicals via the vapor, we would recommend that electronic cigarettes continue to be regulated in order to abide by particular guidelines and restrictions for the public. Given the addictive quality of nicotine, we would recommend a ban on nicotine-containing e-cigarettes, as this will help portray the use of e-cigarettes as a temporary smoking cessation tool that is used short-term in an effort to eventually wean the smoker off of it entirely. Due to the emissions and chemicals that result, similarly to WHO, we would recommend a ban on e-cigarette use in enclosed public areas and workplaces. In terms of marketing, we would recommend advertising to be altered to portray the e-cigarette as more of a temporary tool, as opposed to alternative, in regards to cessation, as the long-term effects have not been studied. But most importantly, we would recommend continued research on long-term effects to better understand the health impact of its usage, particularly with an emphasis on environmental health and secondhand smokers.